Bonjour and welcome aboard the Knitty Stew podcast. My name is Leanne. I am the Knitty Stew. I'm coming to you today from the city of Paris, which seems absolutely surreal to me. Welcome. I am going to explain that if you're new to my channel, the Knitty Stew stands for stewardess. I am a Canadian flight attendant who has recently started to fly international routes. And I love to talk about my knitting, and I love to visit local yarn shops and tell people about Canada. But more recently, I have been flying over the Atlantic. So I am here today in a very exotic location, and I'm losing the sunlight, but I'm going to try and podcast and make sense. I got in on this red-eye flight from Calgary to Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport, and I had a nap, about an hour and a half nap, and then I got up and went out. So hopefully I'm not as fatigued as I was in my Dublin video if you were here for my previous episode. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for all the returning viewers and anyone new. I hope you enjoy the content today. I am gonna grab my water, and I invite you to hopefully grab a project, maybe a beverage of choice. It's my favorite thing to do is to knit along and just get cozy and see what other knitters are up to. I do have a fair bit of things to discuss today. I have three finished objects, 2 works in progress, and that's about it. I've got lots of footage to show you of Paris, so I hope you'll stick around for that. And yeah, so let's get right into it, shall we? Starting with my first finished object, which I wore all over town today. This is the Frisky Leaves Tee, which is a pattern by Jill Carina. It's a paid pattern. I made the size B, which is size 2, and I used Sandnes Garn Tin Lena, which is the fingering weight version of this Sandnes Garn yarn. I had 4 balls kindly gifted to me from Statement Junkie, a friend of mine who owns a wonderful yarn shop in Sherwood Park, Alberta. And I still have a full skein, and how much is left in this one? 34 grams for an entire top. Yeah, I definitely wasn't sure if I would get this last summer knit out, but I tried it on and then I was just reinvigorated with this lace pattern, which is very fun, very intuitive, and I just think it turned out really well. I'm going to show the back. When I went to the yarn shop here in Paris, one of the yarn shops that I was able to get to, there was 2 ladies in there. One was the shop manager, and they made me turn around, and I felt somewhat, here in Paris, everyone is very fashionable, and I was wearing my summer dress, which I felt good in. This top saved the day because my shoes are not, I wouldn't say Paris worthy, my Skechers, but I needed like good walking shoes. I walked for, oh my gosh, I think well over 2 hours today. Anyways, back to the shirt. I got the exact gauge the pattern calls for, which is 24 stitches, and that's kind of that's kind of good for me. I'm not usually right on gauge, but that made me happy. And that was using US 3.25 millimeter needles. The pattern calls for the body a US 3.5 millimeter, but I went down and I didn't really get any negative ease. I think it's about exact ease, which my bust is a 36.5 inch bust. And I did make some modifications. One was I did my ribbing, just knit 1, purl 1 on the cuffs, on the arm sleeves, and on the bottom ribbing. I did do, for my cropped length, it was a total of 17 inches from here to the bottom. And what else did I do? Oh, yeah, that's about it. That's all I changed in the pattern. The only thing I would say about it is that I found when I did when I picked up for the right arm, I picked up with the size, the main colors, or the main needle size, and it's a little bit large. I think there's a bit of extra fabric there. And then I just went down to the ribbing needle when I picked up for the left arm, and I feel that one's just a bit more fitted. But overall, I think it turned out really cute. And I knew I wanted to wear that today, so I only steam blocked it. I didn't wet block this. And I'm not sure, how this would block out. I thought maybe too much. The content of the Tinlina is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. So it might grow a bit, but I can say one thing. This is definitely my final summer knit. I am all about fall. It's gotten a little bit hot again here in Calgary where I live. And I'm just, when the leaves drop, as soon as that first leaf drops, I'm ready to cast on all the fall things. But I'm glad I got this one done. And it is my first entry into the LBK Nordic Cal, hosted by Selma of Little Big Knits, and is also a Nordic designer. So, oh, and even Nordic yarn, because Sandnes Garn is Norwegian, made in Norway. So yeah, so this is my first finished object, the Frisky Leaves Tea by Jill Carina. Finished object number 2 is my Kentia. I finished this and I will insert a picture of me wearing it. I'm really pleased with how this ended up turning out. This is a free pattern by Marie-Amélie Designs. And what drew me to this pattern was the lovely lace, of course, in the yoke, and the fact that I could use 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn. And this is similar actually to the pattern picture, and this is what my poor pattern, it is like thin like tissue paper. This took me from June 25th to August 18th, which actually isn't bad, considering I had a hiccup. When I finished the lace, if you saw last episode, I finished the lace and then I misread the pattern for starting the body and ended up having to rip back to right here where you start the contrast color and you do ribbing. And I misread a thing which was supposed to be net 1, purl 1, 31 times 2, so it should have been 62 stitches before casting off for the sleeves, and had to rip back. But I picked them up and I carried on, did the body, and I think that's a really sweet top. What I think I was gonna put it on for you, but again, I'll just put a picture of me wearing it. I think I might try and get a white collared top to go underneath it. I think it's not too lacy, honestly, to wear as it is, with just like a tank top or anything like that, but I just think it might look really classy that way. What else do I want to say about this top? I definitely had a wonderful time with it. That lace part was it was really nice to do, and I just loved how it started to emerge. And other than the mistake that I made with the picking up or the switching to the body, it was all good. The yarn I used for it was fingering weight Corriedale for the beautiful Beaver Lodge colorway. This is 100% Corriedale sock by Crux Fibers, a friend of mine who lives up in Whitehorse, Brittany. Very talented dyer, spinner, wool whisperer all around. And then for the body, I used Amelia and Philomene. This yarn I love so much. I used it for my Zweig, the body of my Zweig sweater, and it is 70% merino, 30% or 20% yak, and 10% nylon fingering. And that's also a Canadian dyer. The base is Adelina and the color was Naturel. Not much else to say about that top. I do think the one advice I would give anyone, and I picked up on it from looking at other projects, was that the collar, had I cast on with the original amount of stitches, please do visit my Ravelry page and links below for details, because I'll probably forget stuff with being a little jet lagged and all. But yeah, I used a smaller needle and I cast on less stitches for the neck. Some people said that their neck grew quite significantly, and I think that was maybe part of the design feature of the top itself, because in the picture you can see it's quite open and drapey, but I do like a fitted collar for the most part, or a V-neck. Those are my 2 favorite collar shapes. So I am glad I went down and picked up less stitches right off the bat for the collar. So that's my Kentia tee, finished object number 2. I'm jumping right into finished object number 3. Sunlight is a burnin' here. This is, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen this because I posted it in progress. This is the Guthrie hat, a colorwork hat by Caitlin Hunter, Boylan Knitworks. I love the color changing, and it's so addictive. Caitlin Hunter's colorwork patterns are just off the charts. And I actually treated myself and purchased the yarn called for in the pattern. The Guthrie hat is paid for, and it does actually have 2 different weights. You can make it in the sport weight version, which I did, or the worsted weight version. And I chose the sport weight and purchased the Vovo, which is made by Retrosaria, which is Portuguese wool. It is, I love it. It's lofty, round, good twist, and Portuguese wool. And then I chose Spin Cycle yarns because I've heard a lot about it, and I was out in Kelowna earlier in July, and I purchased Spin Cycle yarns in the Ghost, what is it? Ghost Ranch. I was going to say Ghost Horses. That's another pattern by Caitlin Hunter that I want to make. This is Ghost Ranch colorway. So very curious about this type of yarn because I love the way it fades. Let me put it on for you. There we go. I made the adult small. It does actually have several sizes. You can make one for everyone in your family, she says. It goes from, yeah, adult small, adult large, and adult extra large. But there's also child, adult small, and adult large as well in the sport weight version. And there we go. This will look great, I think, in the fall. I'm going to get closer so you can check out what I'm going to complain about here. So I definitely feel that the Spin Cycle dyed in the wool. It's 100% American wool. I definitely think this is fingering weight. And especially when it's paired with the Vovo. So probably won't. Anyways, perhaps it's just this type of this lot or this version. Maybe it was more sporty weight at one point, but I'm definitely noticing that there are gaps in my color work, which my tension, I'm a big fan of color work and I practice it a lot, so I don't normally have issues. But yeah, you can see there's some spaces and gaps because the Vovo was, I would say, quite a lot thicker than the Spin Cycle. Regardless, I think this is an adorable hat, and I would definitely want to make the Guthrie pullover sweater pattern as well, because this was super fun. And I did also mention this in my last episode, I think, is that this Spin Cycle, wanting this color shifting and this barber pole effect, had actually pushed me into getting my little e-spinner to try spinning again, which is very intimidating to me, but I have given it a pretty solid try, and my friends have been encouraging me, my pod pals and just good fiber friends, to keep going. So I've been trying to practice a minimum of 15 minutes a day, and usually I actually have to pull myself away from it. It is starting to feel like it's starting to come, like as I'm feeding it through, feeling the twist. And yeah, honestly, I don't know if the yarn would be usable. I do know it needs to be plied after I'm spinning it. Maybe I'll put a couple pictures up here when I'm editing so you can see my spinning journey. So that's something very new to me, and I'm glad I'm starting to do that because I would like to make my own Spin Cycle looking type yarn one day and make something with it. So those are all my finished objects. I am definitely losing the sun really, really quickly. So I will insert my footage from my excursion here in Paris, France today. And then I will come back, talk about my works in progress, and we'll see you in a minute. So a 24-hour layover is, oh my goodness, not nearly long enough to check out all the amazing things in this beautiful city. I was looking on Google for some fun facts, and I came across a thing that is called Paris syndrome, which apparently some people experience after going to Paris. They're extremely disappointed because the city did not live up to the hype. I don't know what that's all about at all, because I thought this place was just incredible. Really enjoyed my walk around, and I planned out 3 places that I wanted to see for sure. I needed to look up the closest yarn shop, which was within walking distance of our hotel. I wanted to see the Arc de Triomphe and, of course, the Eiffel Tower. So I headed out, and it was so nice. It was a little overcast, and it was a little cool, so I was glad I had worn my knitted top, and I did bring a little wrap to wear. The city was bustling, and yet really laid back and calm at the same time. Not a lot of horns honking where I was walking anyway, and everyone was very fashionable. And oh my goodness, there is a reason this is a gastronomic capital. There was fresh food, pastries, a cafe, restaurant on every corner, and everyone was out and about getting fresh fruit from the vendors and their meat from, you know, the artisan butchers, that kind of thing. It was really cool. Paris is one of the most visited tourist cities in the world. The Eiffel Tower was actually very unpopular when it was built. There are 1,665 steps to the top of the Eiffel Tower, and it is illegal to distribute images of the Eiffel Tower at night. When the Eiffel Tower needs repainting, it's done by hand. The Eiffel Tower was almost destroyed in World War II. There are over 40,000 restaurants in Paris. The Bloody Mary was invented in Paris in 1921. There is a law about the exact recipe for baguettes. Paris has an annual competition to find the best baguette. The city has the largest wholesale food market in the world. There are more dogs in Paris than children. Now, I'm not sure about this fun fact, but it says that it was illegal for Parisian women to wear pants until 2012. The first photograph of people was taken in Paris. Of course, the Louvre, the most visited museum in the world, is home to the most famous painting in the world, the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, here I am at the yarn shop that was closest to our hotel, Une Maille à l'endroit. And the lovely lady Natalie, who's the manager, one of the co-owners of this chain of yarn shops. Actually, there's 4 within the city and 1 just in the suburbs, she said. She was so nice to me. It was a very small shop. I gotta say, I was somewhat disappointed because although I did find some French yarn, some Fonty, when I googled yarn shops, I wanted to go to Little Weasel. However, it was an hour and 2-minute walk, and I thought about trying the metro, but I was a little intimidated, and then I kept coming across bikes for rent, and the traffic was just too frightening to me. Honestly, I just did not feel comfortable enough venturing that far. But please do enjoy the footage of Une Maille à l'endroit, and maybe next time I go back to Paris, I will be a little bit more adventurous and try taking the metro or renting a bike. So I don't think you have a whole lot of time once the sun decides to start to set in Paris. So I decided to head out from the yarn shop and make my way towards the Arc de Triomphe. On my way there, I was just captured by all of the beautiful architecture everywhere. This door was open and this mosaic tiled floor, beautiful French archways, into this courtyard. And I was like, where am I? It was absolutely quiet in here, and I'm in the dead center of Paris. So I had to go in there and take a picture of that. Beautiful churches, of course, stunning architecture everywhere, and a lot of beautiful ornate sculptures, and even the fence there. The building to the right in this portion, that's actually the public washroom. That was the nicest outdoor toilet that I've ever used, ever. It was about 6:45 when I managed to make my way to the Arc de Triomphe. Very, very famous landmark honoring those who fought and died for France during the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, with the names of all French victories and generals inscribed on its inner and outer surfaces. Under its vault lies the tomb of the unknown soldier from the First World War. Next, I came across a bridge just right across the way from the Eiffel Tower. The sun was starting to set, and the city was oozing with romance. It was really lovely. Of course, I'm there by myself, but that's all good. The only problem was I was absolutely starving, and I gotta admit here, I did not get into a fancy French restaurant. I stopped at a crepe maker and his cart. And I gotta say, this was the best Nutella and banana crepe I've ever had. And I also was starving. The only problem was that he didn't have any napkins or paper towels. And so when I ate this, it was not good. I had chocolate all over my face. And I got a sparkling water, and this helped me the last 10-minute walk towards the Eiffel Tower. This guy was set up right alongside the river. 16,000 steps, and I finally made it to the Eiffel Tower, and it was worth it. Face covered in Nutella chocolate, a happy heart, and a beautiful sunset. I didn't have tickets. They do have tours, but I sure would love to visit again sometime. I hope you enjoyed the footage from Paris today. Ironically, here in the City of Lights, I have lost the sunlight, so much to my chagrin, I am filming with not natural light, so there might be some weird shadows and the colors might be a little off, but I'm on a roll, I think, I hope. I'll find out after when I'm editing if this makes sense, this podcast. Might delete later, don't know. But I would love to discuss my 2 works in progress with you. Maybe have a quick back galley chat and then sign off here. Yeah, so next up is my work in progress, which right now is just a big green yoke. All right, this is the early beginnings of what will be a hybrid knit. We're gonna call it a blending together. So this is going to be color work from the Suolaulu sweater from Knitted Kalevala book, and instead of using the construction in the pattern, which is bottom up, I have wonderfully found, I'm so happy, a free design pattern by none other than the amazing people at Espace Tricot, the Bright Side sweater, which is actually a design made with the yarn which is used and called for in the Suolaulu sweater. I'm probably saying that wrong, from the Knitted Kalevala. I will put a picture. It's Rama garn, a Rama phenol. So this yarn is sport weight, 100% Norwegian wool, and I spent a great deal of time doing some gauge swatching before I started this. and wet blocking it on different size needles and asking other people on Instagram what everyone's gauge is. And I was pretty happy with the US 4 3.5mm gauge, just the look of it, the all-around way it laid with the color work. And then, so I started the bright side sweater, and I'm using a US 4 3.5mm needles, and my gauge is not the same. It seems to be a little bit looser. So I think I'm getting in around 21, 22 stitches per 4 inches. I really don't like this unnatural light. Anyways, yeah, I'm working away on it. What I've done is I would like a denser fabric than the bright side calls for. So the bright side sweater, again, it's a free pattern by Melissa Clulo and Mona Schmidt from Espace Tricot, or perhaps former owners of Espace Tricot. If you haven't checked out Espace Tricot, they are a yarn shop in Montreal. They're wonderful, and they also have a YouTube channel and so many free patterns that are just wonderful. This one is a classic. I think it's an older one, and the gauge in it calls for 21 stitches by 28 rounds using a US 6, which is the main body size, so a 4mm. So I'm trying to get it a bit denser so that it looks a bit more like my gauge cowl. Like, that's a pretty decent like commitment there. So I do want this to turn out. And oh, I should also mention that the Rama garn, the Rama Fino, I was kind of gifted from Smita at Your Next Knit, which is a website, and she is out of Vancouver, Canada, and she's building her inventory. She has some really great woolly yarns and lovely yarns, and I was very curious to try the Fino in a sweater. So that's what I'm working away at here. I'm using some sweater math, so my stitches per inch versus the bust circumference, and I am thinking I'm probably going to be in good shape right now. We'll see if my gauge does continue to shift and change as I go. I've also heard and have noticed that when I wet blocked the Rama, it blooms quite well, and I think I'm not sure you can actually go wrong using the Rama. I'm already liking it quite a lot. And I'll just quickly flash, I made a chart from the Knitted Kalevala book, and I used stitch fiddle and flipped it so that I can work it from the top down. Shall I try on my whip for you? It's fun to pop a yoke over your head. And there we go. This is the beginnings of my Suolaulu bright side sweater. And my contrast color is, I think I showed this, white. Yeah. So that's work in progress. And I also, I had 2 people message me about my needle stoppers, and I thought that people were referring to these fun ones that I have that are like little Pac-Man ghosts, but someone mentioned they were actually asking about these ones, which are, they were gifted from my husband's gran, so they're very much vintage. They are great, and I don't think they make them like they used to. They're really grippy and they really stick on there, so sorry I can't give you a link to that. Work in progress number 2. It's one you've probably seen a fair bit. I've seen some gorgeous iterations of it lately. I'm making, hopefully, a Misurina by Caitlin Hunter, Boylan Knitworks. Big fan of her colorwork patterns, obviously. And the inspiration for it was Tracy from the Grocery Girls. I saw hers, and then also Jody had one made up in her yarn, and she wore it on their podcast, and I thought, I think I need a Misurina in my life. And then in the mail came this incredibly beautiful, I will show footage of when I first received it. This is hand spun yarn, and this light isn't doing it any justice. This is hand spun from my friend Jackie of Knitting a Good Yarn podcast. She also has Spinning a Good Yarn Instagram handle. And she made this for my 50th birthday. And I was so in love with it from the second I saw it. I couldn't believe she was generous enough to spin that up by hand, the time that takes. And she also infused it with blessings, love, rainwater, sunlight, and moonlight. It is fiber from Bramble Ridge, and it is sea glass Polwarth and mushroom hunt BFL, and it is a 2-ply, approximately 217 plus 33 yards. So this paired with a neutral color, this is actually BC Garn fingering weight, which I have a fair amount of, is this far into a Misurina. I'll get you guys to tell me what you think. If you think it's hard to see so far. I haven't got too far into the chart, but what an addictive, wonderful pattern. It has these beautiful lace pieces, and then it's separated by some cable, and then this, I just absolutely, it sort of reminds me of a tattoo, these, the colorwork panels. And I think that looks pretty hardcore. But using Jackie's gifted yarn to me, which will shift and change into the beautiful teals and yellows and green. I just think that's, I hope it's a good match made in heaven. And if the yarns aren't too different in like weight, if you've made this, tell me if you've used something that's, because obviously this BC Garn, not sure if you've used BioBalance before, but it is a delightful yarn fingering weight. And then as the nature of hand spun is, it is, I would say for sure, like as a 2-ply, it is mainly fingering weight as well. But there are some other areas where it's a bit more slubby. And that's the beauty of it. So I'm working away on that, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm not sure if I would make a short sleeve or a long sleeve, but again, that's kind of up in the air. I'm going to keep going on, and once I'm done the color work, we'll see if I'm going to keep going with that or if I will make it with a different yarn. All I know is this is very precious, and whatever it goes into is going to be a treasured garment. Okay, that's it for my knitting content. I would love to have a little quick catch up with you, and if you want to stick around for back galley chat, just a little life update, let you know what's going on in Leanne's world. And if not, if you have to take off, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that your knitting and your life is going well. All right, we'll talk to you soon, and I'll be right back with back galley chat. Well, I was going to work on my Suolaulu and Brightside hybrid sweater while I did a back galley chat, but I just realized when I looked at it that I'm at some short row shaping, so probably not a good idea to try and do 2 things at once. At this point, I'm starting to feel pretty fatigued. My headache's kicking in. I'm gonna drink some more water and then head off to bed. But quick life update if you're here for that. I always like it when podcasters talk about stuff like this. So Dave and I, my husband, we did manage to get out and get into nature. We'd been planning to try and go camping and kayaking all summer, and sure enough, we left it till basically the last weekend of August, and we went out to Lower Kananaskis Lake, which is just absolutely a stunning area in Alberta where I live. We stayed overnight and popped our tent and got to listen to the sound of rain on our tent. And it was just perfect weather, not too hot. It wasn't smoky, as maybe you've heard and on the news. We've got a lot of forest fires in BC and area, and they drifted over into Alberta, and it's just been a crazy summer that way. But it was a little hazy, but it was still beautiful. We paddled around Lower Kananaskis Lake and then stayed at the Lower Kananaskis campground. It was awesome. I knit on this actually, so it had that campfire smell, which is actually still has that because I didn't wet block it. So anyways, I was really needing that, and it was good. Dave and I had a great time. It was short. We didn't want to come back to the noise of the city, actually. It was so nice and peaceful. So that was great. And then I don't know, we'll call it a victory because it is. I had to fight a parking ticket and decided to get brave and go down to the traffic court and not necessarily fight it, but just plead for some compassion or understanding. We moved to where we are living now, and I find that there's a street cleaning time when the sweepers come, and it's in April. And for some reason, I didn't see the street cleaning signs. And lo and behold, it also happened again this past April. So I took that first ticket in and went to speak to the Justice of the Peace, and he was the nicest guy ever. I just sat down, and I actually had gone right after work, so I was still wearing my flight attendant uniform. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he likes flight attendants and thinks they're good people. I walked in, he said, "So what's going on here?" And I said, "Well, apparently I'm a chronic blocker of street cleaners, because I'm here to hopefully discuss what happened with this one, because it was up to $120, and then this new ticket I have is $144. So he said, "I'm totally withdrawing that. Don't worry about that." So he withdrew it. And then my next ticket, which is coming up, I am also going to try and fight it, with the understanding that I have signed up for email and text alerts for when street cleaning day is in my neighborhood. I won't be there blocking the street cleaner and getting tickets. So anyways, that might be a really boring life update, but I was like, yay, that's $120 worth of yarn. Let's just translate into stuff we can all understand, right? So that happened, and other than that, I've actually been very disciplined, studying, doing a ton of e-learning for my annual training, which happens every year. If you have been here following my channel for a while, you know that every year we do requalification training for our Transport Canada. So we do evacuations, emergency procedures, and a lot of online studies. So I'm down to the last, I think I've got about 8 left, and my 2 days of training are coming up at the campus, where I go into the training center, and that's September 2nd and September 5th. And once that's done, I will be a certified flight attendant, cabin crew for another year. And other than that, what else is going on? Very much looking forward to a trip to Whitehorse with my knitting bestie, Tracy of Oliver Rain Knits. We're going up to visit Crux Fibers Brittany at an off-grid cabin. So that's happening at the end of September. And today, well, it's another day because I came across the Atlantic, but I flew out and arrived in Paris on a very special date. August 29th is my sobriety birthday. And if you have been following my channel, last year on my sobriety birthday, I was in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, and I shared about it because it's a very significant milestone. This year marks 11 years alcohol-free, and I am very open about that sobriety, and because I find that maybe people just don't talk about it, that it might be a problem in their family, or they just choose to try and not drink alcohol because it doesn't agree with them or is causing consequences. And I feel that it's important for me to put that out there, and if anyone is struggling, you can contact me anonymously at my email address, theknittystew@gmail.com, and perhaps I can provide some resources or just some things to look into or consider. That my life is, I mean, there is no comparison. I would not have the job that I have today. That definitely would have been taken away. Things for some people are a-okay with like glasses of wine here and there, sparkling, you know, whatever it is. Alcohol doesn't always equate to a problem, but it was not taking my life in a direction I wanted it to go. So I'm celebrating my 11th year of sobriety in Paris, that is pretty cool. And apparently it's a blue moon today, which is the 30th of August. So that's kind of neat. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with this community because, as I say every single time, your comments, your engagement, and the way you show up for this channel keeps me going. And I really appreciate everybody here. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to sign out, get some rest, and fly back to Canada. So thank you so much again. I hope everyone is safe and happy and finding joy in your creativity, or whatever you might be up to these days. Thanks again, and I hope to see you again next time on the Knitty Stew. Bye.